Hey, why was the bluebird suspicious of his neighbor's gift? Well, that's because Jay sent it, right? All right, you guys. In Chapter 8, we're going to talk about the trig portion of our geometry course. 8.1 specifically about the similarity in right triangles. So if you take a look at this picture here, in triangle, specifically the right triangle, ABC, we have segment CD as the altitude. What happens is it takes and it splits this into two separate right triangles. And what happens there is, because the altitude is a perpendicular bisector, the large triangle and then the two small triangles that it creates actually have similar proportional sides and similar angles. So when I ask you to write a similarity statement comparing these three triangles, I want you to actually write out the order of which they match up. So in this case, we've got triangle ABC, that's the big triangle, being similar to, now let's take a look at the medium triangle, matching up with ABC, we've got ACD, and then that smaller triangle, if you take a look at the way that one matches up, we're looking at triangle CBD. Okay? So this is that theorem. If the altitude is drawn from one vertex of a right triangle over to the hypotenuse, then the two triangles that are formed are actually similar to the larger triangle. And this is that similarity statement that compares those three triangles. So here we are again. We have a large right triangle. We have an altitude going from a vertex over to the hypotenuse. What I would like for you to do then is write a similarity statement comparing the three triangles, okay? So pause me and then come back. We'll see if we have the same answer. All right, so even though your first letters might be a little bit different, remember the U should match up with the U and the W for the medium and the small. V should match up with WV and then WZZ, okay? The next part I want to talk about is the geometric mean of two positive numbers. Okay, this is the square root of their product. Product meaning multiplication here. So if I've got A, B, and X are positive numbers, and it's set up like this, is how you're going to set up your geometric mean. X is actually what's going to be called the geometric mean between A and B. Okay, so X is going to be the constant here. You're going to switch up A and B depending on which two numbers we're talking about. I'm going to do the first one, then I'm going to ask for you to do the second one, please. I want you to find the geometric mean of each pair of numbers. If necessary, give the answer in simplest radical form. So if you have to break down the radicals. So if you take a look at the first one, if we set it up like this here, I've got 4 and 25, and now remember the X stays the same here. To find the geometric mean, you guys should know these ratios, they're supposed to be proportional. So we cross multiply here, we get X squared is 100, and when I take the square root, I get that X is 10. So the geometric mean between the two numbers 4 and 25 is 10. Please try B, and then come back, we'll see if we end up with the same thing. All right, so we had 5 over x equals x over 30. So you get x squared is 150. Now the largest perfect square that goes into 150 is 25. So we should get 5 with a square root of 6. All right, the next theorem states that the measure of the altitude, remember the height, drawn from the vertex to the hypotenuse, is the geometric mean between the two segments. Geometric mean, remember the altitude or this part here is going to stay the same. So we're going to call this part over altitude, then altitude over part. So if you take a look at this picture here, to solve, we would take part over altitude, altitude over part. Then all you'd have to do is cross multiply and solve. Let's try some problems. All right, so this first one, do you have the altitude, yes or no? Yes, we sure do. They give us an actual measurement for it. So in this case, we're going to take our part over altitude, altitude over part. So the first part here is 5. The altitude is 10. 10. The second part right here is y. So when I cross multiply, I get 5y equals 100, leaving me with y, or the the one portion, of the hypotenuse over here as 20. I would like for you guys to try this one, please. We do have the altitude here, so I would like for you to do the part over altitude, altitude over part, please. Okay, so part over altitude, altitude over part, so I get 4 over x, then x over 8. So I get x squared is 32. The largest perfect square that goes into 32 is 16. That's how I got my 4 square roots of 2. All right, the other large theorem that's in this section is theorem 8.3. This says if the altitude is drawn from the hypotenuse of the right triangle, okay, the hypotenuse of the right triangle, then the measure of the leg is the geometric mean between the hypotenuse and then the segment adjacent to it. So we're still looking at the same picture here, it's just now we don't have the altitude, we're looking at the legs. All right, so these are our pictures here. I want you to notice they don't give you anything for the altitude. Now you have the legs here. So in this case, we're going to do the whole thing, which is the hypotenuse, over the leg that they give you. In this case, they're saying A, and then the leg over the part that's closest. So here, the whole thing is x plus y, or in this case, we're going to call it C. Over the leg, they give us A, so A over, now the part that's closest to A, the part that's closest to A is x. Not y. Y is across the triangle. The part that's closest is going to be x. Now down here, let's say they give me the other part. Let's say I'm talking about this leg over here, like B. Well, it's still going to be the whole thing, which is C. But now we're going over B, and then the closest part to B is y, not x. Now I know it seems a little bit confusing, but we're definitely going to practice some problems. All right, so first one. First things first. Do they give me the altitude? No, it's not even an x, okay? In this case, you know you're supposed to do the whole over the leg over the part. So the whole thing here, the whole hypotenuse is 8. The leg that they give me is 3. And then 3 again, and now the part that's closest to 3 is x. So I get 8x equals 9 when I cross multiply. So we're looking at 9/8, or if you wanted to say 1 1/8, that is okay with me. All right, next one. Again, you guys, there's no altitude here, so we're going to have to do the whole thing. Now, the whole thing here is the combination of this. 4 plus 2 is 6, so the whole thing is 6 over. The leg that they give us is x equals x over. Now, the part that's closest to x, which is 2. So I get x squared equals 12. The largest perfect square that goes into 12 is 4. So I have 2 square roots of 3. I would like for you guys to try this one. Now watch out, we do have an altitude here, so this is going to be part over altitude, altitude over part. You just have to find this part here, and then come back, and then we're going to try something different. All right, so to find this other part, you have to take the whole thing and subtract the piece you don't want. So this is actually x minus 2. So now you could do part over altitude, altitude over part. X minus 2 over 6, 6 over 12. Cross multiply, don't forget you have to distribute this here, so you have 2x minus 4, and then you work out your problem. All right, this next one's a little bit different because we're missing a whole bunch of stuff, right? We're missing U, V, and W. First things first, so I want you to notice they do give you the altitude, and you have something on your part for the hypotenuse here. So I would actually do the part over altitude, altitude over part to find U. And then you'll have the whole thing to help you find the legs. So let's start with U, okay? We're going to use part over altitude, altitude over part. So we're going to do 3 over 9 equals 9 over U. So 3U equals 81, leaving me with U equaling 27. Okay, now that I know that U is 27, I can find the other two because now I know the whole thing here is 30. So pick one. I'm actually going to go W. Okay, the whole thing over the leg over the part that's closest. So the whole thing is 30. The leg I just said we're going to use is W equals the leg. Now the part that's closest to W is this right here, the 27. So I get W squared equals 810. And when I take the square root, the largest perfect square that goes in there is 81. It's 81 times 10. So W is 9 square roots of 10. Now let's work at the other side. We're going to look for V. Okay, to find V, again, it's the whole thing over the leg. So 30 over V equals V over The part that's closest is 3. Sorry, guys, I had to answer the phone. All right, so the closest is 3. So when you cross multiply, you get that v, oh my, I had to hit the pen again, sorry. V squared is 90. Largest perfect square is 9. So you get that v is 3 squared to 10. Okay, you guys, this is really important. This is actually the most that's going to be in your homework right here, this type of stuff, where you have a triangle with everything missing. So make sure that if you have questions on this, you bring it, okay? So now we're going to go to the next one. I'm going to have you work on it. I want you to find x, y, z, and then I want you to come back, okay? All right, so remember, here's the problem. I want you to notice you do have your altitude. So that's the easiest way to solve for this, to find the whole length here, okay? So you try this, we'll come back and then we'll see. Okay, so the first thing I did, because I had the altitude, was do the part over altitude, altitude over part. So x over 6 equals 6 over 9, giving me 4 for x. Now I know that since this is 4, the whole thing here has to be 13. So now I picked z first, so 13 over z equals z. Now the part that's closest to z is 9. Did my cross multiplying, this is 9 times 3. Then I did the whole thing over the leg over the part that's closest to it to find y. And I got 4 times 13, so this is 2 squared to 13. Make sure you guys, if you don't get this, please make sure that you ask questions. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night, you guys.